Hi everyone, so I wanted to show you the next item in my Beetlejuice series. This is the preacher from the wedding scene where Beetlejuice is trying to marry Lydia. And there's the dude in the fireplace that's reading them the wedding vows. So I decided I wanted to make him. So I started off, I just made a basic form out of foil and hot glue. It's just lots of rolled up foil, and then I've squeezed it and pressed it till it's in the shape that I want for the body. And then I made a rough head shape with the foil and glued them together. I didn't show that because frankly I'm running out of storage on my iPad filming this, and it would have made for a very boring part of the video. So it's just the armature. So all I'm doing now is I've coated the head in a layer of clay. And the next thing that I need to do is start marking in where the detail is to get the eye position right and the features and everything. So this is what I'm doing now, is I'm just marking where the eyes are. He's got very, very large eyes. They're basically just sockets because he's kind of based off a skull. So he doesn't really have like eyeballs or anything. He just has eye sockets. And they're quite large on his head, and he's got a very big head and quite a stunted body. And yep, so what I'm doing here is I've marked out roughly the outline of the shape of the eyes, and I'm just using my clay tool to press in and to create that eye socket shape and give it some depth. Because I'd put a decent layer of clay over the head, it meant I'd got some room for pressing in the clay to create this depth, which is what I wanted. I didn't put it on too thickly, but just enough so that I could create a little bit of depth. And then what I'm doing here is there's like his nose is very triangular, and there's like a very thin like bridge to his nose. So I'm just putting that in. He's got very big nostrils as well. I'm just roughly marking where stuff's going to go, but I did change that because it was wrong. But you'll see me alter that in a bit. So I roughly placed where the nostrils would be and then fixed where I'd messed up the nose. I needed to make it more triangular first at the bottom before actually trying to put the nostrils in. So I'm just fixing that and just smoothing it all down. The reason I like to use Sculpey is because it'll stay soft until I've baked it in the oven. So it gives me lots of working time and lots of time to correct any mistakes and just tweak things a little bit. And yeah, as you can see, I then went in and created the large nostrils. It's almost like like the nasal bone on a skull is what you can see on this figure. He doesn't really have a nose, like a full nose as such. And then he's got like some ridges of skin around his eyes. And so I'm just using little snakes of clay to just create those. And it just gives me, by using these snakes of clay and blending them in, I can create that wrinkle around the eye without too much problems. I find using little thin snakes of clay is a good way of creating like creases in clothes, wrinkles in skin, things like that. He's got very sunken in and very wrinkly skin, so it forms these like little ridges around his eyes and these little sort of, well, quite big wrinkles around the edge of his eye socket, but you can still see his eye socket through the wrinkles. So I'm just creating that here, and what I'm doing first is just concentrating on one side, getting that just how I want it, and then I'll worry about matching the other side later on. I find this is easier. If you prefer, you could sculpt both eyes at the same time, but I don't particularly worry about that. I just find that this is the easiest way for me to do it. Just start off on one side and then make the other side match. Here I'm creating his upper lip because the mouth area on the figure sticks out a bit, and I didn't put enough clay into the head in the first place. So what I'm doing here is adding some extra clay to form the top lip. It's a bit big at the minute, but obviously once all the detail's been carved into it and it's been blended in, it'll be smaller. And obviously creating the lower lip as well and blending all that in. I'd rather put a bit too much clay on and then remove it later if I need to, than not put enough on and have to try and add clay once I've done all the detail, which would be a pain. So that's why I did it this way. I'm just going by the reference pictures that I found online. I found pictures of the original animatronic head that they used for the film, and I also found pictures on Google of just scenes from the film, and obviously watched the film because I've got it on DVD. So I used all of those for reference. It was quite useful seeing the original animatronic, although the expression on it was different from the one I wanted to create. I wanted to create an expression I'd seen from a still from the film. But it was useful just to see like proportions and see the colour of the skin and the textures. So I was able to incorporate that into the design. Then what I'm doing here is putting in the wrinkles and ridges in his skin. He's got quite deep folds in his skin. It's quite sunken in. Obviously because, you know, he's basically is a skull with a little bit of skin stretched over that's obviously over time has decayed and sunken in. I'm assuming he's like really old, and obviously he's from the Beetlejuice universe, so he's from the other side, so he's going to be quite old and wrinkly. And then I'm just tweaking the shape of his head to try and get it to match the reference I've got, and making sure I go over these ridges and make them look darker. And then what I'm doing is using little light strokes to create texture in the skin. There's a lot of wrinkles in the skin on this. Imagine sort of like, it's almost like he's dried and mummified, so he's got that sort of very dry, very wrinkly skin. And I'm adding lots of wrinkles around his eyes and everything. And what I did was created the same on the other side. I just paused the video because otherwise this video was going to be hours long. This took me a whole day to make. So obviously you're seeing the main parts of it, but not every single minute detail, because otherwise the video would be like days long. So yeah, what I'm doing now is filling out the body and marking out roughly where the edge of his jacket is, because he's wearing a suit with like tails, you know, like the suit jackets where they've got like the long area at the back. So I created those and his trousers, and I made some feet shapes out of foil and covered them in clay and stuck that to the bottom as a solid piece. And that's so he can stand up, and I've made sure several times that he does stand up even with the size of the head he's got. That's why I had to make sure the feet stuck out a certain amount just to prevent him from tilting forwards. And then what I need to do now is add details of his jacket and everything, and also his little bow tie. I could have put like a sort of shirt collar on him, but I was getting bogged down with detail and didn't really want to sort of make it ridiculously fiddly, so I focused on just doing his bow tie, and that kind of made it look like he'd already got a shirt on anyway, so I got away with that. It's not the main focus of the design. The main focus of the design is his head. But I thought it just finished him off nice by having his little dicky bow in. And if you look on some images from the film, he does actually have a little bow tie on. So I created his bow tie, and then what I focused on next was making the collar for his suit jacket. And to do that, I just rolled a large stake of clay and flattened it out, and then used my clay tool to cut it into the shape that I needed. And then I flipped that over so it was mirrored, and then cut a second piece out, the same shape but mirrored, so I've got the other side of the jacket as well. I find it's easier to do it this way because what you can do is cut it out, test it for size, and obviously this was way too big, but I'd rather start too big and take some off. So I tried it on, could see it was massive, and then it's just a case of trimming it down, and it just makes it easy to find the correct size, and then obviously using that as a template for the second one just makes life a lot easier, so they can match as closely as possible. So as you can see, I've got another piece of clay that I flattened out, and then I used the first one as a template to cut out the second colour from the second piece of clay. And these dental tools, I just picked them up online. I just got them off Amazon. It's like a set, about 20 quid, and there's all different tools in there that do different things, like different shapes and sizes. I find them quite good, little stainless steel tools. They remind me kind of like dentist tools almost. They're very useful. Not sponsored or anything, obviously. I'm not sponsored by any companies. I like to be independent. And then worked on blending the edges in and making sure that that was well secured down. I did like the separation between the collar and the jacket, so I just redefined that separation to make it look like the collar's folded over the top of the jacket as opposed to just all part of one thing. So I didn't want to blend it in too much. If you're wondering where his arms are, what I decided to do was make him first, the bulk of him, and get him fired in the oven, because at this point, if I tried to put the arms on, I risk damaging the head and everything and the detail that I'd got on the body. So I just thought, we'll focus on the body, and then all you have to do is, when you stick the arms on, I've made a hole each side of him to feed the armature wire in for the arms. I built the arms on armature wire, and then using some bacon bond just inserted them into the body, and then put plenty of clay on and blended it all in, and it worked perfectly fine, just to make life a lot easier than say trying to sculpt it all in one go. Then I worked on all the, it's like piping or trimming or whatever you call it, that's all around his jacket. It's all around his pocket and all around the jacket, the suit jacket itself. The next stage was to make his book. There's a book that he's holding that he reads from for obviously the words that he has to say for the wedding ceremony. So I'm just building that. I could have made a proper little book maybe out of like card and stuff, but it's easy to make it out of clay, so I just did it this way. So I made a basic book cover shape and then added a couple of pages to it, so you could see the pages lifting up as if he's just been flicking through to find the page he needs for the ceremony. So I just added a double page and a single page like so, and then just blended that all in. I then made a thin snake of clay which I attached to the book to be like a bookmark. So I'm imagining he's finally found the page he needs, and so he's marked it with his little ribbon bookmark. And then I just added some more details into the book, and I also signed my work. I like to sign my work somewhere where it's a little bit out of view so it doesn't spoil the look of the object. So I just put FUM 2020 on the back of the book, on the book cover, and placed that on foil because it was going to be baked in the oven. I did attach this to him first before baking it, which you'll see me do in a minute. I just did some little squiggly lines to represent writing in the book, and also marked in where on books that are bound, they've got like that sort of ridge around the spine. I can't remember what it's called. So I just put that in with clay. Then as you can see here, what I've done is I've made his hand and his arm and attached, I've wrapped that around wire. And then what I'm doing here is I've put bacon bond in the gap where the hole was and fed the wire through. And then I'm just using extra clay to just blend all the shoulders in and blend the arms in and make it all nice and smooth so it looks like it's part of the jacket. This was the fiddliest part because the book had got a bit of weight to it, and obviously the clay at this stage is very flexible. His hands are not perfect, but I'm not brilliant at sculpting hands. That's something I need to learn to do, but they suffice for this. They're not going to really be on view much unless you really look anyway. So here I am just blending that all in, and what I did is I inserted a piece of wire through his body, through the book for extra support, and added that on. And then once that was all blended in, it was a case of baking him in the oven. And because this video is already 15 minutes long, I'll show you me painting him in the next video. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.